Admiral Jessica Mitchell had witnessed countless battles across the void of space, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. Standing on the bridge of the UES Victory, her weathered hands gripped the command rail as the last of the Titan Collective's crystalline vessels shattered into cosmic dust. The massive energy beings that had terrorized humanity for decades were finally dissolving into streams of ethereal light, their once fearsome forms reduced to little more than stellar phenomena. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the trembling in her fingers. The bridge crew, still tense from 18 hours of continuous combat, responded with practiced precision. "All Titan signatures are declining rapidly, Admiral," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his sensor station. "Their quantum matrices are collapsing across all detected frequencies. Whatever that new weapon did, it worked better than the eggheads predicted." Mitchell nodded, remembering the desperate gamble they'd taken. Project Lightbreaker had been theoretical at best, a weapon designed to disrupt the very fabric of the energy being's existence. The fact that it had worked seemed almost too good to be true. "Casualties?" she asked, dreading the answer. Commander Sarah Wells, her XO, consulted a holographic display. 27 ships lost from the combined fleet. "Admiral, approximately 8,000 personnel." She paused, swallowing hard. "But considering we were facing their entire armada, it's a miracle we're still here." 8,000 dead. Mitchell closed her eyes briefly, adding those names to the mental list she carried since this war began. They'd won. Humanity had achieved the impossible, but victory always came with a price. "Begin recovery operations," she ordered. "I want every surviving ship accounted for." And the bridge lights flickered, and every display screen suddenly went dark. Mitchell tensed, her hand instinctively moving to the sidearm she still carried. "Report." "Some kind of system-wide interference," Rodriguez called out, his fingers dancing across his now-dead console. "It's not just us. I'm getting emergency signals from the entire fleet." Before Mitchell could respond, every screen on the bridge blazed back to life. But instead of their usual tactical displays, they showed the same strange sequence of symbols, flowing lines and curves that seemed to shift and move even as they watched. "Sanskrit," breathed Dr. Emily Chase, their xenolinguistics expert. She'd been on the bridge monitoring Titan communications during the battle. "Admiral, those are Sanskrit characters, but they're changing, adapting into modern English." The symbols shifted and flowed, resolving into clear text. "You have proven worthy. Now face your true test." The same message is appearing across the entire fleet, Wells reported, her voice tight. "Every screen, every computer, even personal devices, they're all showing the same thing." Mitchell felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't some dying curse from the Titans. Their technology had never demonstrated anything like this capability. This was something else entirely. "Dr. Chase, analysis," she demanded. The linguist shook her head, her dark eyes wide. "The original Sanskrit is ancient, older than any recorded human civilization. But the translation, it's perfect, too perfect, like it's being customized for each reader." "Admiral," Rodriguez's voice cracked with urgency, "getting reports from Earth, Mars, all the colonies, every human device capable of displaying text is showing the same message. Quantum computers, holoscreens, even old-style calculators, everything." Mitchell stared at the glowing text, feeling the weight of command settle even heavier on her shoulders. They'd just won the greatest victory in human history, but somehow she knew this wasn't the end. Something vast and ancient had been watching their struggle against the Titans, judging them, waiting for this precise moment. "Send word to Fleet Command," she ordered, her voice cutting through the growing murmur of concerned voices on the bridge. "Tell them," she paused, looking at the message one more time. "Tell them the war with the Titans might have just been a preparation for something much bigger. And whatever's coming next, it's already begun." The message continued to glow on every screen, a silent challenge from something that could rewrite reality itself. Their victory celebration would have to wait. The real test was just beginning. Dr. James Cooper hadn't slept in 36 hours, but the trembling in his hands came from excitement rather than exhaustion. The Mars excavation site had been silent for months, yielding nothing but dust and disappointment. Now, as riots erupted across Earth's megacities in response to the mysterious message, his team had made the discovery of the century. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice hoarse from the thin Martian atmosphere inside the pressurized dig site. The holographic recording flickered to life, its ancient crystals somehow still functioning after millions of years. The scene showed a civilization at its apex, crystalline spires reaching toward the rust-colored sky, streets filled with beings that looked almost, but not quite, human. Then came the flash of victory, their weapons blazing against some unseen enemy, followed by that same Sanskrit message appearing across their world. And then, nothing. An entire civilization gone in an instant. "They just vanished," whispered Dr. Sarah Martinez, his assistant. "No signs of violence, no mass exodus. They were there one moment and gone the next." She adjusted her environmental suit's filters. "A nervous habit, just like the other sites we found." Cooper nodded, his artificial eye whirring as it recorded every detail. 17 civilizations now. All disappeared after achieving some kind of major military victory. He pulled up the data on his tablet. The Centauri Republic after defeating the Silicon Plague. The Proxima Coalition after repelling the Dark Fleet. And now this. Dr. Cooper. A young researcher burst into the chamber, his face pale behind his visor. "We found another chamber, deeper in the complex. You need to see this." The new chamber was smaller than the others, but every surface was covered in detailed star charts. At the center stood a holographic display showing 17 points of light, with Earth clearly marked as the 18th. "These are all the civilizations we found records of," Cooper muttered, his artificial eye scanning the data. "But look at the timestamps." He felt his blood run cold. They're sequential. Each disappearance happened exactly 30 days after their greatest victory. Martinez did the calculation quickly. The Titan Collective was defeated 26 hours ago, which gives us 29 days to figure out what the hell is going on. Cooper activated his comlink. "Get me a secure channel to Admiral Mitchell on the Victory. She needs to see this." As his team scrambled to establish communications, Cooper studied the star charts more closely. There was something else here, something in the pattern of disappearances. Each civilization had faced a seemingly unbeatable enemy. Each had triumphed against impossible odds, and each had vanished exactly the same way. "Sir," Martinez called out, "we found something else. It looks like coordinates." The new discovery was etched into the chamber's floor, a series of quantum-encrypted coordinates pointing to something deep in unexplored space. But it was the message beside them that made Cooper's heart race. "For those who passed the first trial, seek the ones who came before." "Dr. Cooper," his comm crackled with Admiral Mitchell's voice, "please tell me you have something that explains what's happening." He took a deep breath, staring at the holographic display of doomed civilizations. "Admiral, I have good news and bad news. The good news is we're not alone in receiving this message. The bad news..." He paused, watching as Earth's marker began to pulse with an ominous red light. "The bad news is that every civilization that got this far has disappeared without a trace. All of them. And if the pattern holds true, we have less than a month before we join them. Options." Mitchell's voice was tense. Cooper looked at the coordinates again, his artificial eye recording every detail. "There's a set of coordinates here, left by someone who knew we'd find them. Someone who's survived this before." He straightened up, decision made. "Admiral, I need a ship. Whatever's happening, whatever this test is, the answers aren't here on Mars. They're waiting for us somewhere out there in deep space." The ancient chamber hummed with power, its secrets barely beginning to unfold. Time was running out, and humanity's greatest mystery was about to become a race against extinction itself. Mining control. This is Deep Core Team 6. We've hit something unusual at level -47. The operator's voice crackled through Mercury's electromagnetic interference. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. Chief's engineer Marcus Reynolds wiped the sweat from his forehead, despite the environmental suit's cooling systems working at maximum capacity. Mercury's core was a hellish place for mining operations, but something about this transmission made the heat seem even more oppressive. "Define unusual, Team 6, he responded, watching the thermal readings spike on his display. "Sir, our drills just bounced off something. It's a perfect cube, about the size of Manhattan, and it's made of what appears to be a single diamond crystal." Reynolds was already moving toward the emergency transport pod before the transmission ended. 20 minutes later, he stood before the impossible. A massive crystalline structure buried deep within Mercury's core, its surface reflecting the mining lights like a mirror from heaven. "It's not natural," Dr. Cooper said through the comm link from the surface station. The xenorchaeologist had arrived hours earlier by emergency shuttle. "The atomic structure is too perfect. This was manufactured." As if responding to Cooper's words, the surface of the cube suddenly illuminated, lines of light racing across its faceted surface. A doorway materialized, sliding open with a hiss of ancient machinery. "All teams, fall back," Reynolds ordered, but his curiosity overwhelmed his caution. Before anyone could stop him, he stepped through the threshold. The interior was a cathedral of light and information. Holographic displays sprang to life around him, showing scenes from human history, but not the history he knew. He saw humans fighting titans on different worlds, in different eras. He saw Earth, but not as humanity's birthplace. It was shown as a refuge, a sanctuary found after some ancient catastrophe. "Dr. Cooper," he whispered into his comm, "are you seeing this?" Every bit. Cooper's voice was filled with wonder. The Mercury facility must have been monitoring us for millions of years. This isn't just an archive. It's our true history. A central hologram activated, larger than the others. It showed a timeline of human civilization, but it stretched back far longer than any archaeologist had ever dreamed. And at the current date, a countdown appeared: 29 days, 14 hours until preservation process initiates. "The preservation process," Cooper muttered. "That's what happened to the other civilizations. They weren't destroyed. They were preserved, somehow stored as information." Reynolds moved deeper into the facility, his suit's sensors struggling to process the energy readings. "There's more," he reported, entering what appeared to be a central chamber. "It's showing other species, dozens of them, all preserved at the moment of their greatest achievement." The chamber walls displayed scene after scene of different civilizations, each facing their moment of triumph followed by their preservation. But something about the humans was different. Where other species appeared once in the timeline, humanity appeared multiple times, fighting the same battles on different worlds across millions of years. "It's been a cycle," Cooper realized, his voice filled with dawning horror. "We've faced the Titans before, maybe dozens of times. We've won before, and each time." A new hologram activated, showing Earth as it was now. The display zoomed in, revealing millions of tiny points of light, every human life on the planet, cataloged and ready for preservation. "This isn't just an archive," Reynolds said, watching as his own biosignature appeared in the display. "It's a preparation system. Whatever built this place, they've been preparing humanity for preservation for millions of years. The Titans, the wars, all of it, just to get us ready for this." The central hologram shifted again, revealing a message in flowing script. "Final iteration achieved. Subject species has reached optimal development parameters. Preservation sequence loading." "Dr. Cooper," Reynolds felt his mouth go dry. "I think we just found out why those civilizations disappeared. And unless we figure out how to stop it, we'll be next," Cooper finished. But this time, we have something the other civilizations didn't." He paused, and Reynolds could hear him inputting commands rapidly. "We have access to the system before preservation begins. And maybe, just maybe, we can find out why this is happening at all." The countdown continued its relentless advance as humanity raced to understand the true nature of their victory and the price that came with it. Admiral Jessica Mitchell stood at the helm of the UES Victory, staring at coordinates that shouldn't exist. The Mercury Archive's data had led them far beyond mapped space to a star that didn't appear on any human chart. Dr. Cooper's findings had convinced Fleet Command to authorize this desperate mission, despite having only 26 days remaining before the supposed preservation event. "Dropping out of quantum space in 3, 2, 1, the navigator announced. Reality twisted, and Mitchell's breath caught in her throat. Before them hung a planet that defied everything she knew about human civilization. Massive orbital rings encircled it like halos, cities floating in perfect geometric patterns that spoke of technology far beyond current human capability. Reading thousands of artificial structures, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with awe. "And, Admiral, they're detecting us. We're being hailed." "On screen," Mitchell ordered, straightening her uniform. The face that appeared on the main display could have been human, should have been human. But something was subtly different. The woman's eyes held the weight of millennia, and her smile spoke of secrets too vast to comprehend. "Welcome, children of Earth," she said, her voice carrying an accent that hadn't existed for 50,000 years. "I am Eve Sullivan, first speaker of Eden 7. We've been expecting you." Mitchell felt a chill run down her spine. "You know who we are?" "Of course." Eve's smile widened. "We were you once. 50,000 years ago. We too defeated the Titans. We too received the message, but we found another way." 20 minutes later, Mitchell stood in a chamber that made the Mercury Archive look primitive by comparison. Eve Sullivan walked beside her, her movements carrying an inhuman grace that spoke of extensive biological engineering. "The Titans weren't real enemies," Eve explained, gesturing to holographic records that filled the air around them. "They were constructs, created by beings we call the architects. Every species that reaches a certain level of development faces them, or something like them. It's a test, you see, but not the kind you imagine." "The preservation process," Mitchell said. "The Mercury Archive showed us other civilizations, all preserved at the moment of their victory." Eve's expression darkened. "Yes, the architects believe they're saving us, collecting the greatest achievements of each species before." She paused. "Well, that's not important yet. What matters is that we found a way to partially resist the process, to exist in both states, preserved and free." "How?" "By understanding what the architects truly are." Eve waved her hand, and the holograms shifted to show impossibly ancient machinery, vast structures that dwarfed galaxies. "They're not gods or monsters. They're archivists, librarians of reality itself. But they've forgotten why they started their great work. They preserve civilizations without understanding that preservation without purpose is just another form of death." Mitchell watched as scenes from human history played out before her, not just their history, but dozens of alternate paths humanity had taken. "You're saying we've done this before?" "Multiple times. Humanity is unique," Eve said, her eyes glowing with internal light. "In every iteration, across every test, we display a quality the architects have been searching for, but don't recognize. The ability to change, to grow, to help others even at our own expense. They preserve us over and over, hoping to understand this trait, but their very method of preservation destroys what makes it possible." A new hologram appeared, showing the countdown they'd seen in the Mercury Archive. 25 days, 18 hours remaining. "So what do we do?" Mitchell asked. "How do we stop this?" Eve's smile returned, but now it held a predatory edge. "We don't stop it. We complete it. Your victory over the Titans wasn't just about proving your strength. It was about proving you were ready for the truth. Help me finish what I started 50,000 years ago. Admiral Mitchell, help me show the architects that true preservation isn't about stopping time. It's about giving it purpose. The chamber hummed with power, and Mitchell realized she was standing at a crossroads not just for humanity, but for all preserved civilizations. The real war wasn't against the Titans or even the architects. It was against the very nature of existence itself. Dr. James Cooper's fingers flew across the holographic interface of the Mercury archive, his artificial eye stringing data faster than any natural human could process. 25 days until preservation, and each second revealed new horrors and new hope. Look at this, he called to his research team. Every preserved civilization shows the same pattern. At the moment of preservation, their quantum signatures don't vanish. They're transformed. Dr. Martinez leaned closer to the display, her face illuminated by streams of ancient data. Transformed into what? Information, Cooper said, his artificial eye whirring as it captured another pattern. Pure, living information. The architects aren't destroying civilizations, they're digitizing them, converting matter to data with perfect fidelity. The central chamber of the archive pulsed with new light as Cooper accessed deeper layers of its memory. Scenes from preserved civilizations played out around them. The crystalline beings of Proxima Centauri, the energy dancers of Sirius B, the quantum collectives of Delta Pavonis. All of them, alive but changed, existing as pure data in the architect's vast library. There's something else, Cooper muttered, noticing the subtle pattern in the data stream. Look at these quantum fluctuations in the preservation matrix. They're not random. He isolated one of the patterns, expanding it across the chamber's main display. Within the seemingly chaotic noise, a clear signal emerged, a message hidden in the very fabric of the preserved civilizations. They're all trying to communicate, Martins whispered, her eyes wide. Every preserved species, they're conscious, aware. They've been leaving messages in their own quantum signatures. Cooper nodded, his excitement building. And look at the content. They're not crying for help or screaming in fear. They're trying to tell us something about. He paused, double-checking his findings, about the nature of existence itself. The archive's displays shifted, showing a vast network of interconnected data streams, the combined consciousness of thousands of preserved civilizations, each contributing to a message that had taken millions of years to compile. The architects aren't our enemies, Cooper realized, reading the patterns. They're not even our judges. They're scared. Scared of what? Martins asked. Before Cooper could answer, a new transmission cut through their communications. Admiral Mitchell's voice, tight with urgency. Dr. Cooper, we've made contact with the first humans. You need to see this. The archive responded to Mitchell's transmission, linking directly with Eden 7's databases. New information flooded the displays, showing the true scope of the architect's mission. They're trying to preserve life itself, Cooper breathed, watching the data unfold. Not just individual species, but the very concept of consciousness. They've detected something coming. Something that threatens not just our universe, but the very nature of existence. Martinez pointed to a new pattern emerging in the data. Look at these preservation signatures. Every species shows varying levels of resistance to the process. But humans, we're different. Cooper expanded the human preservation data, his artificial eye capturing every detail. We don't just resist, we adapt. Where other species try to fight or flee, humans try to understand. His voice trailed off as he saw the final piece of the puzzle. We what? Martins pressed. We empathize, Cooper said softly. Even with our greatest enemies, even with forces trying to preserve us against our will, we try to understand their perspective. The architects have been running this experiment over and over, preserving humanity multiple times, trying to understand this trait. The archive's countdown continued its relentless advance. 24 days, 12 hours until preservation. But now Cooper saw it differently, not as a deadline for extinction, but as a challenge to prove humanity's unique worth. "Contact Admiral Mitchell," he ordered, his mind racing with possibilities. "Tell her we found something in the preservation patterns. The architects aren't testing our ability to fight or survive. They're testing our ability to understand. And if we can prove we understand their true purpose, then what?" Cooper smiled, watching as the patterns of preserved civilizations danced around them like stars. "Then maybe we can help them remember why they started preserving civilizations in the first place. Maybe we can show them that true preservation isn't about keeping things unchanged. It's about helping them grow." The quantum-encrypted communication between UES Victory and Eden 7 crackled with static as Admiral Mitchell faced Eve Sullivan's holographic projection. Dr. Cooper's latest findings from Mercury had changed everything, and the countdown now showed 24 days, 6 hours until preservation. "You found a way to exist in both states," Mitchell said, studying the ancient human's ethereal features, physical and preserved. "How?" Eve's image flickered, her smile holding secrets accumulated over 50 millennia. "By understanding what the architects forgot. Look." She gestured, and the space between them filled with cascading data. Every preserved civilization exists in a quantum state of perfect information, but information without connection is meaningless. Dr. Cooper's voice joined the conversation from Mercury. "The archived civilizations. They're trying to communicate with each other, aren't they?" "More than trying," Eve replied. "We've succeeded, partially. The first humans discovered that the preservation process has a flaw. It can't completely erase consciousness. Every preserved species retains a spark of awareness, trying desperately to reach others in the archive." Mitchell watched as new data streams appeared, showing the quantum signatures of thousands of preserved civilizations. Each one pulsed with subtle patterns, hidden messages encoded in their very existence. "Here," Cooper said, his artificial eye detecting a pattern others had missed. "Look at the quantum resonance between preserved species. They're not just communicating. They're trying to merge their experiences, their understanding." Eve nodded. "The architects designed their system to preserve civilizations in perfect isolation, thinking it would protect them. But they forgot why they started their mission in the first place. Every preserved species has discovered a piece of the puzzle, a fundamental truth about existence itself. But only by sharing those truths can we understand the whole picture." "And that's how you achieved partial resistance?" Mitchell asked. "Yes. The first humans found a way to maintain quantum coherence between our physical and preserved states. We exist simultaneously in both realms, able to communicate with the archived civilizations while maintaining our physical form. But it's not enough." Cooper's excitement was palpable even through the quantum link. "Because you're still isolated. Each civilization is preserved separately, unable to truly share their knowledge. But if we could find a way to connect them all." "Exactly," Eve said. "The architects have been running their preservation program for billions of years, collecting the greatest achievements of countless species. But they've forgotten that the greatest achievement isn't survival or victory, it's connection." Mitchell's tactical mind raced with the implications. The Mercury archive showed that humanity has faced this test multiple times. "We've been preserved before, but something about us is different. We keep getting selected for preservation over and over." "Because humans instinctively seek connection," Cooper interjected. "Even in isolation, even when faced with extinction, we try to understand, to empathize, to reach out. The architects keep preserving us because they're searching for this quality, but their method of preservation makes it impossible to fully express." Eve's hologram stepped closer, her eyes intense. "Now you understand why I've waited 50,000 years for this moment. Your victory over the Titans proved you're ready for the next step. The architects aren't our enemies. They're archivists who've forgotten the purpose of their own library." 24 days, Mitchell mused, watching the countdown. "Not to fight or escape preservation, but to prove we understand what the architects themselves have forgotten." Cooper finished. That true preservation isn't about perfect stasis. It's about growth, connection, and shared understanding. Eve's image smiled, and for a moment, her quantum signature resonated with patterns from countless preserved civilizations. Help me finish what we started 50 millennia ago, Admiral Mitchell. Help me show the architects that their greatest creation isn't the preservation system. It's the potential for all preserved species to learn from each other, to grow together, to become something greater than the sum of their isolated parts. The chamber hummed with possibility as Mitchell realized they weren't fighting against preservation anymore. They were racing to transform it into something the architects had never imagined. A way to preserve not just information, but the very essence of what made conscious beings unique. Their ability to connect, understand, and grow together. Admiral Mitchell stood in the heart of the Mercury Archive, surrounded by holographic displays showing the quantum signatures of 1,000 preserved civilizations. Dr. Cooper worked feverishly at the main interface, his artificial eye streaming data as the countdown reached its final hours. 48 hours until preservation. There has to be something we're missing, Mitchell muttered, watching the patterns of preserved species swirl around them. Every civilization faced the same test, fought their own version of the Titans, but we're the only ones who keep getting preserved repeatedly. Cooper's hands froze above the interface. Wait. That's it. His artificial eye whirred rapidly. Look at the battle records from each preservation event, not at the victories, at what happened during the fights. The archive responded, displaying scenes from countless battles across time and space. Humanity fighting the Titans in 100 different ways, across dozens of iterations. But as the scenes played out, a pattern emerged that had nothing to do with strategy or weapons. There, Cooper pointed. Every time, without fail, even in the heat of battle. Mitchell saw it too. In every iteration, human ships broke formation to rescue wounded enemies. Soldiers stopped advancing to tend to fallen Titans. Even knowing they faced artificial constructs, humans consistently chose to help their opponents when they could. The victory was never the test, Cooper breathed. The architects weren't measuring our ability to win. They were watching what we'd sacrifice to help others, even our enemies. The archive's displays shifted, showing similar moments from other preserved civilizations. Most species fought to the bitter end, focused solely on survival. A few showed mercy after victory, but only humans consistently chose to help others at their own expense, even in the middle of critical battles. That's why the architects keep preserving us, Mitchell realized. They're looking for true altruism, the capacity to value others' existence as much as our own. But their preservation method destroys the very thing they're trying to save, Cooper finished. By preserving each species in isolation, they prevent the connections that make altruism meaningful. A new transmission cut through their discussion. Eve Sullivan's quantum encrypted signal from Eden 7. You found it, haven't you? The hidden variable they've been searching for all along. The architects preserve civilizations looking for something they don't understand themselves, Cooper explained, his fingers dancing across the interface. They recognize the value of altruism, but their own programming prevents them from comprehending it fully. They keep hoping that by preserving enough examples, they'll finally understand what makes conscious beings choose to help others at their own expense. Mitchell watched as Cooper brought up the preservation countdown. 47 hours remaining. So we don't fight it. We don't try to escape. We show them their own contradiction. Exactly. Eve's voice held centuries of vindication. The architects preserve civilizations to protect them from some future catastrophe. Their entire mission is, ironically, an act of altruism. But they've forgotten this, becoming so focused on the preservation process that they've lost sight of its purpose. Cooper's artificial eye caught another pattern in the data. Look at these quantum signatures. Every preserved civilization is still trying to reach out, to connect with others. Even in perfect stasis, conscious beings never stop trying to help each other grow. Then that's our answer, Mitchell said, her tactical mind already formulating a plan. We don't resist preservation. We embrace it. But we show the architects that true preservation isn't about perfect stasis. It's about growth. Cooper finished. Connection. The very things they've been unconsciously searching for all along. His hands flew across the interface, correlating data from thousands of preserved civilizations. If we can prove that consciousness itself is defined by its ability to help others grow. The archive's displays pulsed with new energy as Cooper's calculations revealed a possibility no one had seen before. A way to preserve not just information or consciousness, but the very essence of what made conscious beings unique, their capacity for genuine altruism. "Send word to Fleet Command," Mitchell ordered, her voice firm with purpose. "Tell them we found our answer." The test was never about surviving preservation. It was about showing the architects what true preservation really means. The countdown continued its relentless advance, but now it felt less like a deadline and more like a beginning. They had 47 hours to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just surviving impossible odds, but helping others do the same. The final hour of the countdown pulsed across every screen in the Mercury archive. Admiral Mitchell, Dr. Cooper, and Eve Sullivan's holographic presence stood before the vast crystalline interface, their last desperate plan ready to execute. All preserved civilizations are showing increased quantum activity, Cooper reported, his artificial eye streaming data. The archive's processing power is at maximum capacity. Whatever we're going to do, it has to be now. Mitchell nodded, her expression resolute. "Start the sequence." Cooper's fingers danced across the interface, implementing code that represented humanity's ultimate gambit. Instead of fighting preservation, they were attempting something unprecedented, linking the quantum signatures of every preserved civilization into a single, unified network. "Connection protocols initiating," Cooper announced. "Quantum coherence at 30% and rising." The archive's displays erupted with cascading data as thousands of preserved civilizations began to interconnect. Each species' unique quantum signature harmonized with the others, creating patterns of impossible complexity. "They're responding," Eve breathed, her holographic form flickering with excitement. Every preserved consciousness is reaching out, sharing their understanding, their experiences. The chamber filled with light as new connections formed. The crystalline beings of Proxima shared their understanding of quantum mechanics with the energy dancers of Sirius. The silicon minds of Delta Pavonis merged their knowledge of cosmic engineering with the organic wisdom of a dozen other species. "Coherence at 60%, Cooper called out. "The network is stabilizing." Suddenly, new presences manifested in the archive. Vast, ancient consciousnesses that radiated power and purpose. The architects had finally revealed themselves. "They're not trying to stop us," Mitchell realized, watching the pattern shift. "They're learning." Eve's hologram smiled. For the first time in billions of years, the architects are seeing the true purpose of their mission. Not just preservation, but connection, growth, the very things they've been unconsciously searching for all along. The architect's presence resonated through the network, their ancient programming confronting the reality of what they'd created. Every preserved civilization was contributing its unique perspective, showing how consciousness itself was defined by its ability to help others grow. "Look," Cooper pointed to new data streams forming. The architects, they're remembering their original purpose, the reason they started preserving civilizations. The truth unfolded across the displays. The architects had been created at the dawn of time, tasked with preserving life against some future cosmic catastrophe. But in their focus on perfect preservation, they'd forgotten that life's greatest value lay in its ability to change, to connect, to help others grow. "Quantum coherence at 90%, Cooper announced. "The network is fully stable. Every preserved civilization is now connected, sharing knowledge, growing together." The countdown reached 0. But instead of the expected preservation beam, something else happened. The architect's presence shifted, their vast consciousness resonating with understanding. Through the network, they communicated not in words, but in pure concept. We remember now. Preservation without purpose is stasis. Stasis without growth is death. You have shown us what we forgot, that consciousness itself is defined by its ability to help others grow. You have completed the true test. The archive's displays shifted, showing a new reality. The preserved civilizations weren't just connected. They were evolving together, sharing knowledge across species and time, creating something greater than the sum of their parts. And humanity, with its unique capacity for altruism, had become the bridge between them all. They're offering us a choice. Eve translated, her holographic form pulsing with joy. We can join the network, adding our understanding to the whole. Or we can become what you are. Mitchell finished, understanding flowing through the quantum link. Custodians, helping other civilizations reach this point, preserving not just their existence but their ability to grow. The answer was obvious. Humanity had never been meant to simply survive or be preserved. Their role, their true victory, was to help others achieve the same understanding they had reached. Accept, Mitchell ordered, and Cooper initiated the final sequence. The Mercury archive pulsed with new purpose as humanity took its place, not as another preserved species, but as custodians of consciousness itself. They had proven that the greatest achievement wasn't survival or victory, but the ability to help others grow beyond what they thought possible. The age of simple preservation was over. The age of connected growth had begun.